Stands have incredible destructive power and speed. Their abilities complement this even more. Some stand abilities are built for destruction, as they can easily wipe out foes with ease. Star Platinum, for example, already has impressive physical stats, but its time stop ability allows it to pummel its opponents unguarded. Others aren't built for combat, but are great for information gathering, such as Hermit Purple. Some are kinda useless. There exists a group of stands that not only possess a lot of destructive power, but whose abilities are built around protecting their users. These stands each have their own unique abilities. Their main purpose is to protect their users from any and all harm, whether they're massive explosions, poison, or gunfire. However, which of these defensive abilities are the best, and which would come out on top?
Dirty deeds done dirt cheap.
D4C in its base form can travel to other dimensions when Valentine is caught between two objects. This ability is already powerful on its own, but the stand in its evolved state pretty much makes this pointless. After assembling the full Saint's corpse, D4C radiates a golden light. This golden light may be shiny, but it has an extremely useful ability. When an attack intersects the light, it gets redirected somewhere else. Now, unlike an ability like Accelerator's Vector Control, which changes the magnitude and direction of an attack, Love Train takes the negative energy associated with it and gives it to a random person in time, manifesting as a random calamity or accident. This transcends time and space, as those affected could be nearby or in the past or future. A bullet, for example, can be converted into negative energy, which then manifests as a massive car accident in Ohio. It doesn't matter how big or powerful an attack is, it will always get redirected. If Valentine takes damage, putting the injury within the light will redirect the damage to someone else in time. Nothing can get past the light, as it fully envelops Valentine's body most of the time. Valentine can also use Love Train to embed himself into certain objects. Despite being formidable, Valentine needs to move his stand's body out of the light to attack, leaving it open for retaliation. Any attack utilizing the infinite rotation can also get past the ability. 20th Century Boy is pretty much a weaker version of Love Train. Its ability is pretty simple. When his user's hands make contact with the ground, the stand envelops his body, and the energy from any attack that makes contact with him will be channeled into the ground and redirected somewhere else. Even if he's in point blank range of an explosion, the energy will be sent away from him. Every part of his body is pretty much invincible, as not even bullets to the head will affect him. This ability also makes it so he doesn't have to breathe, so he can survive at the bottom of the ocean, unless he ends up in Bikini Bottom.
But this game's not scary, bro. Oh!
The ability has a massive weakness. Magent can't move any part of his body in this state, as the ability will deactivate. He can also be put in situations where deactivating the stand would mean instant death.
Over you.
Does anyone remember the movie Final Destination? That movie basically revolved around the concept of death itself manipulating the surrounding environment to kill our protagonists. Well, that's basically one of the review's ability. When individuals attempt to pursue the head doctor, look at the head doctor's back, or Toru's face, they are immediately targeted by Calamity. Calamity can come in many forms, but it's basically anything bad that can occur at any moment. Your house, for example, can randomly explode for no reason. Calamity's main purpose is to kill an individual, so avoiding one calamity will instantly just trigger another one immediately. It's completely random in how it behaves, so it's not possible to predict. It looks like objects randomly move around on their own to initiate calamity. You can randomly trip and break your neck, or a billboard can suddenly come apart and crush you. Calamity is basically Murphy's Law. The object's damage are amplified to an unrealistic degree, as raindrops suddenly have the ability to tear through flesh, meaning Calamity doesn't have to follow logic. People can also be manipulated by Calamity, as their attacks can accidentally collide with you and initiate another Calamity, or their aggression towards you can become massively amplified. The range in which you attack one of you doesn't matter. Even if you're only inches away from attacking him, Calamity will manifest and prevent it from happening in some way, shape, or form. Calamity goes through people with a list-like format. Anyone who intends to pursue Toru the most will be targeted the most intensely. Seeing Toru's face or the stand's back yields the quickest reaction. If you want to survive Calamity, hope that you have something that doesn't exist, or stop pursuing him entirely. Speaking of characters that inflict Calamity, this video was sponsored by Raid. Diavolo has a terrifying time-based ability, one that was seen as unstoppable early on. Diavolo can see the future with his substand epitaph. The futures he sees are 100% guaranteed to happen. When Diavolo sees something that doesn't benefit him, such as taking damage, he activates. King Crimson allows Diavolo to see each and every one of the movements you were supposed to make in the next 10 seconds. Except, he doesn't have to follow these movements himself. King Crimson manipulates fate. If Diavolo was fated to get stand barraged to death, he can use King Crimson to avoid it, while his opponents continue to barrage as if Diavolo was still in front of them. Diavolo is pretty much invincible in this domain, as any attacks pass through him. An added bonus is that those next 10 seconds will be erased from existence, resulting in his opponents getting confused in their sudden change of location and actions. Since the time doesn't exist anymore, they won't remember what happened in those past 10 seconds. This disorientation leaves them open for a killing strike from Diavolo. If Diavolo was fated to do something to his benefit, it will still happen. If Epitaph showed Diavolo lifting someone up and impaling them, fate itself will force that to happen, since that's what was fated to happen to them. Remember, Diavolo may be able to avoid fate with his ability, but not anyone else. It's pretty much impossible to sneak attack Diavolo as well, as Epitaph will show him that future. Green Baby manipulates the concept of size. When you or an object attempt to move closer to the baby, you slowly get smaller and smaller. There's nothing that can work past this ability, and any object or attack will shrink. This ability works in all directions. There exists a vanishing point with this ability, a size so small that anything that gets there will be basically erased from existence. This makes it so any attack or individual who seeks to do the baby harm will never achieve their goal. The stand itself seems to have a mind of its own, as it pursues anything that stands in the baby's way. If you're small enough, it can make itself larger and attempt to crush you to death. Any already small objects can be made much larger. The baby sort of works like the Achilles paradox. No matter how close you try to get, your size will be divided endlessly, making the distance between you and the baby pretty much the same from the start. This ability also allows the baby to cross a body of water, despite the fact that they can't swim. Only the baby can decide what isn't affected by the size manipulation.
これがゴールドエクスペリエンスレクイエム
Gold Experience Requiem can return anything to zero, while King Crimson forces you to skip actions. GR undoes them entirely. It doesn't matter if the attack was an ability or physical, it will be reversed as if nothing ever happened. If someone has stand barrage Jarno, their actions getting returned to zero pretty much puts them back in the period of time before those actions were initiated. Visually, it looks like time itself is reversing. It doesn't actually seem like you can remember the ability affecting you, as Mista repeated the exact same actions again without questioning what was going on. Diavolo only remembered because of the nature of his ability. Return to Zero is a passive ability, meaning Return to Zero will undo any attack, regardless of if Jarno even knows it's coming. GR can undo your actions while it's in the middle of attacking you. That's why Diavolo couldn't activate King Crimson in this moment. Return to Zero affects a wide area and seems to also influence non-living things and individuals who aren't even a threat to Jarno. Once GR kills you, it sends you into an infinite death loop, where you're constantly sent to different locations where you succumb to many different calamities. It doesn't seem like stands can be activated either. When up against Gold Experience Requiem, you'll pretty much be forced to never do anything. Now with all that out of the way, who has the strongest defensive stand? I'll just say right now that 20th Century Boy is the weakest. It's extremely effective at deflecting damage, but the user being forced to stay stationary comes as a big handicap. The Force Love Train is powerful, but not as good as the others. Okay, listen. Despite the fact that it redirects all forms of attack without question, we still have to consider that Valentine needs a stand to leave the light to make any form of attack, which leaves him open for retaliation. So it isn't perfect. King Crimson is extremely powerful, and is useful when avoiding damage, but we've seen that it's possible for people to work around it. That's why Bushiroad was able to escape Diavolo despite being unfamiliar with the ability. Diavolo can also be caught by surprise. Calamity, Green Baby, and Return to Zero are pretty much flawless in their defense. With Calamity, the world itself will always defeat your enemies for you while you never have to do anything, regardless of how close an individual or attack gets. No person or attack will ever get close to Green Baby as they shrink infinitely and maintain the same distance forever, kinda like Jojo's Limitless but slightly different. Return to Zero undoes your actions and you won't even realize it happened. cursing you to repeat your fated movements. When deciding which of these are the best, I have to say all three of them. I probably just wasted your time since you watched all the way through without a proper answer. But all three of these abilities are honestly perfect defense in a variety of different ways. Within the stories they were introduced, the protagonist and antagonist could never really overcome these abilities and had to rely on last minute power-ups or careful planning. Even then, they barely made it out alive. Well, some of them.
俺のそばに近寄るな